never regain, stuck in a losing game. We pass the blame, cycle starts again. We break with a chance to remake. It's up of our mistakes. We follow the lead, but it leads to nothing when nothing is left to claim. We fell addicted to fame and promise of grandeur, but promises never stain. They say you can only get better from here. They say there's plenty more to go. All the answers turn to words that disengage. A will surrenders, letting our future start to fade away. All the answers turn to words that rearrange. We're caught in the sunset, taking a last breath as we fade away. They say you can only get better.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the return of Restoring the Roar, Episode 7. I am your host, Alex Loosemore. Scott, saw your comments here. Thank you for tuning in. Said first, and said, great music. Is that going to get you kicked off of YouTube? Hopefully not, because I went through and tried to find copyright-free music, so hopefully that works out for me. I've used it for every episode so far, and it's been fine, so hopefully it stays that way. So returning for the season here. Excited to have it for the actual season. I'm going to go through and do reactions to preseason week 1 versus the Giants, that 21-16 win. I'm going to look forward to Saturday's game versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, kind of give you what I'm looking for, some positional matchups, and just kind of some quick overview there. And then I'm going to give my initial 53-man roster prediction. It's going to be a bit of a smaller episode. Obviously, once we get into the season and there's a little more to talk about, the episodes will be a little more topic heavy, but for now, this is what we got. Want to come back and just, I'm excited to talk Lions with you guys. Andrew hopped on and said, what's good? Thank you for tuning in, man. And Scott says, I just sent Barry Sanders a Facebook friend request. All right. Hopefully it works out for you. Let's see what you get. Before I get into it, proud to announce, as always, the show is sponsored by Zagnif Apparel, so you can use the code word FOOBS15 at checkout, as you can see it down below, for 15% off on select items. You can see the link there, or it's also ZagnifApparelDesign.com. Either one works. Thank you again to Zagnif Apparel for the partnership, and let's get into it. So I'm going to start off with those reactions to week 1. That 21-16 win versus the New York Giants. And I'm just going to go, this is kind of how I'm going to do the game recaps. Just 5 major things. The 5 main things I take from it. If I only got 3, I'll do 3. However many I got, I'll do those. I had 5 this week. Number 1, I'm going to start in with it. Thank God we got Teddy, as in Teddy Bridgewater, because Nate Sudfeld was awful. There was very few throws that I made where I was like, yeah, this is a guy I feel comfortable being our backup quarterback. He was all over the place, multiple interceptions and just bad throws, miscommunications with Jameson Williams left, right, and center. I don't know if it was Williams, if it was Sudfeld, if it was a mixture of the two. But overall, Sudfeld just did not look good. There were throws. There was one on fourth down. We were right near the end zone, and I believe it was actually Giants rookie Deonte Banks that made the deflection on it. But he threw it to the corner, and I believe it was to Dylan Drummond, the undrafted guy from Eastern Michigan. And it was a ball where if he threw it right to that back corner, Drummond had an easy touchdown. Sailed it short. Banks made a play on it, deflected it. Ball turned over on downs. It's a throw that a lot of high school guys can make, college guys make on a regular basis, but pro quarterbacks make 90% of the time. And he just could not make that throw. And there were multiple times he couldn't make it. Now, he did do it on the 2-point conversion after the punt return touchdown to Jameson Williams, who made a hell of a catch, had that one-handed catch when the defender pulled his arm back, still made the catch. So I'm over Sudfeld. Teddy can easily slide into that number 2 quarterback role. Hendon Hooker will probably take that 3rd quarterback, at least for this year, and then he'll move up the chart next year. But Sudfeld's got to go. As far as I'm concerned, he was brutal. Ben, thank you for tuning in, man. Good evening, young man. Finally, the Kitty Show is back. Yeah, we're back. And trying to decide, because we used to have Terribly Toxic live on Wednesdays. We don't have that anymore, so I might actually move Restoring the Roar to Wednesdays. Might give it an actual time slot there. Especially week 1, we've got the Thursday night game. Can kind of preview it the night before. So I'm kind of debating going back and forth with that. I'll let you guys know when I decide anything on that. Moving on to topic number 2. Actually, one more thing before I move on with Teddy Bridgewater, just because I saw it yesterday or today. So I didn't realize this, but there's a rule in preseason: your jersey number doesn't actually matter. You can wear whatever jersey number during the preseason, and then the number restrictions come into play during the regular season. So next week, on Saturday, when Teddy Bridgewater plays quarterback, you're going to see a quarterback wearing number 50. Bridgewater, it's just like, screw it, number doesn't matter. I'm going to wear 50. So you'll see quarterback number 50 out there. It is Teddy Bridgewater. He'll probably go back to it won't be number 5 because Montgomery has number 5. But we'll see what number Teddy really goes to when the season starts. Moving on to number 2, Jack Campbell. He looked really good. This was my number 1 rookie from the Lions this past week. He looked awesome. He was aggressive. He was really good in the run game. I mean, the highlight of the week from the rookies is Brian Branch and that wicked hit coming across the middle, just screaming across the field. And Tommy DeVito does no favors for his receiver, just flips the ball to him, and as he turns, just gets rocked. Beautiful hit. Love seeing those. So Brian Branch, absolutely love what he did. He's been killing it in practice all training camp. When it came to game time, Jack Campbell really stood out. Was good in pass coverage. Had a couple really good coverage reps. He got tested on a couple of them. I don't think he allowed a catch. But that run game, he looked awesome. I'm excited to see him take over this linebacker group. And is that the coach's son? No, there's actually zero relation. They just have the same last name. That, believe me, that was something pretty much everyone looked into after he was the 18th selection there. But yeah, no relation whatsoever. And Facebook user, I don't know who you are, but thank you. Said good stuff. All right, let's get back into it. Yeah, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Jack Campbell's gonna be the main linebacker, be the play caller. Have that green dot on the back of his helmet. Which might be nice because it might allow Alex Anzalone to do a bit more of what he can do. I mean, I don't really like him. I'd rather it be Campbell and Derek Barnes personally, who's also been doing awesome. But I think it's going to be Anzalone. Oh, it's Ray. Thank you for tuning in, Ray. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you. Yeah, I look for Jack Campbell to take over and be the leader of that defense for years to come. I think that was a phenomenal pick, and he's doing awesome so far. Number 3, we're sticking on the defense. I love this pass rush depth. I mean, when we did when I set up the 53-man roster here, there was a couple I kept off that did very well last week. But there's guys, the Okwara brothers both looked freaking awesome. They both ended up with sacks. Julian Okwara had 3. Romeo had 1 or 2. It was awesome to see. And Hutchinson wasn't out there. I don't think Charles Harris was out there. And those 2 are probably going to be the starters going forward. But Romeo looked really good. James Houston looked good. Julian Okwara looked good. Part of that, I'd like to see it this week too, because the Giants' offensive line, they didn't play their starters at all, other than John Michael Schmitz, the rookie from Minnesota, but the offensive line did not look good. So, interested to see how they look this week. But I really, really love that depth that we have there, which is awesome because it's been a weakness for a long time. Scott said, I'm still looking for that Jeff Fisher mustache. We'll see. We'll see. I'm going to move on to number 4 here. I think Gibbs is going to be the offensive X factor, man. This is an offense that was top 5 in almost every category last year. And I think Gibbs is going to unlock a whole new element. You saw bits of it. He was playing with the backup offensive line. So there wasn't necessarily the same kind of gaps and openings that he's going to have with the starters. But even the few carries he had, I think he had 6 carries for 18 yards, 19 yards, and another catch for 18 yards. But he showed his burst, and it was the patience into the burst. It was very like what you saw from Le'Veon Bell when he was younger. That patience, and as soon as that hole opened, bam, he's gone. Gibbs showed a lot of that. I think Montgomery's going to be the in-between the tackles guy for the most part. He'll be the Mark Ingram. Gibbs will be the Alvin Kamara. Talking strictly on the field, of course. But I think Gibbs is going to unlock something special in this offense. I think it's going to be what we all wanted Swift to be. Gibbs is just going to actually be able to be on the field and do it. And number 5, I might want to word this a little differently. I'll explain kind of what I'm saying. But to just kind of round it up, this team could be special. This is the team that, even non-Lions fans, most of the guys in the comments here are guys that I've kind of slowly been trying to convert into Lions fans. But, this team has been bad for a long time. In my entire lifetime, I've seen, 3 playoff appearances, no playoff wins. We haven't won a division. It's been rough. So this is the first year where it's like that division's up for grabs, and we seem to be the front runner to do it. In my opinion, we have the best quarterback. Kirk Cousins, you can make the argument. Fields, if you want to talk his potential, he can be up there, but for now, he's number 3. I do think we have the best quarterback. We have the best running back room. Actually, no, I'll give that to the Packers, but we're right there with them. Receivers is kind of up, and I'd give that to Minnesota. We have one of the best offensive lines in football. I think Sam Laporta could be a special tight end. I think he's similar to Hawkinson. I think he's very similar talent-wise. Obviously, he'll have to get there. And then there's so much potential on this defense. You have guys like Hutchinson, like Campbell, like Barnes, like Branch, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Kirby Joseph. There's so many guys that can make that a special unit. I'm not talking Super Bowl run this year. I'm going to be realistic about it, but I think this is a team that can absolutely win the division and possibly win a playoff game. I think those are reasonable expectations this year. Stay tuned for a couple, I think not this weekend, but next weekend. We're doing a special NSD season prediction episode. I'll save it for there. I won't give any spoilers before that. Scott said, if I mail it to you, does my letter need a passport? No, it does not. You are good. Ben says, I'm excited to see what Gibbs can do for the run game this season. Robinson is going to get a lot of press, but Gibbs will surprise some people, in my opinion. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I don't think it's far-fetched for Gibbs to be the rookie of the year this year. I think that's. I might go see what the betting odds are on that and throw a little bit of money on that. But I think Gibbs is going to be special this year. I really do. And I mean, I'm excited to see that race between Robinson, Gibbs, and even some of these receivers. I don't think the quarterbacks really have a shot this year. The offensive rookie, but I mean, I'm just excited to see these guys get on the field finally, and for full games. We're almost there, a couple weeks away. We'll be close. Scott says that Barry sends me an autograph football, I'll become a Lions fan. You're not talking to the right guy here. You got to talk to him directly. I wish I had communication with Barry Sanders, but unfortunately not. Hendon Hooker wins the next Lions Super Bowl. I mean, I'd love for it to be Jared Goff. I'd love for it to be Goff because then that would mean probably this year. And we'll see what happens with that Goff extension. But I mean, I'd love to have Hendon Hooker start some football games in the near future. Andrew said August 27th. What an episode that will be. Yeah, I'm excited for that. Noon Sunday, August 27th, the special show. Charles, thank you for tuning in, man. Good to see you. Says go Lions from Louisiana. Yeah, I'm up in Canada, so I love seeing these Lions fans all around the map here outside of the Detroit area. Love to see that. So thank you for tuning in. And Sean says, what's up, Alex? What's up, man? How you doing? Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, so I mean, I'm expecting pretty big things from the Lions this year. I'm still tempering expectations, keeping it fairly realistic, but I mean, yeah, I think this team could do a lot. I mean, certain zoos in Canada, yeah, but I mean, that's as far as that goes. And then, I mean, we'll go down to Saturday's game. What I'm looking for week 2 versus Jacksonville. I mean, my main things are just the positional battles that we're still seeing. I mean, I wonder if we'll get any of the starters playing this week because I'd love to see that battle between Graham Glasgow and Halapoulivaati Vaitai. See who's coming out as the starting right guard. I'm seeing some stuff saying Glasgow, some saying Vaitai. And neither of them played last week, which would have been a good indicator. But I'd love to see that one. I want to see how the DBs shake out because I'm seeing a lot of Gardner Johnson moving back to actual safety, Brian Branch locking down that nickel corner, and then Mosley and Sutton playing outside. But I mean, then you've got Gardner Johnson, Kirby Joseph, and Tracy Walker, who's coming off an Achilles, so he might be the odd man out in the starting rotation there. So, I mean, we'll wait and see there. Scott says nobody's going to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I mean, we'll see. Charles is coming home for the Carolina game. Can't wait. Man, I'm trying to get to a game this year. We'll see if it works. If not, I'm definitely going next year. I'm also going to try and go to the draft next year. I really want to go to the draft in Detroit. Just kind of, I haven't been to that kind of area. I grew up just inside the Canadian border. But I was an hour from Detroit, went there very often. I'd love to go home. I haven't been in 13 years. Just go see the area and just take in the draft. I think that would be really exciting. Scott said, is Teddy really ready? Yeah. Oh yeah, he's ready. He's a pro by this point. He's one of these guys. A lot of these guys, you just have them show up, learn the system. They don't really need the reps in the preseason. A lot of it's for the younger guys and the people fighting for roster spots. Teddy's locked in as that number 2 quarterback, especially with how bad Sudfeld played. Teddy's locked. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see a little bit from Teddy, and then I think Sudfeld and Adrian Martinez. That's another battle I'm excited to see. See if Martinez can steal some of those reps from Sudfeld for that 3rd quarterback until Hendon's healthy. But I could see both those quarterbacks making or getting cut anyways, and it just being Goff, Teddy, and Hendon as that 3rd quarterback. But Andrew said there's still a chance I can make it if you're still down. Oh, I'm planning on going. I'm planning on going. Whoever I can take with me, let's go. But I'm fully intending on going to that draft in April next year. So yeah. Going back to these competitions here. So I said the DBs. I kind of touched on the quarterbacks there, the right guard. And then there's a couple on on the offensive side here. That 3rd running back is totally up for grabs. Craig Reynolds didn't play too much. Benny Snell played and looked really good. I was very happy with him. Divine Ozigbo came in and looked good. I was happy with both of them. So I think they could push Reynolds, and then it's how many running backs are we keeping on the roster this year? I mean, Justin Jackson was our kick returner last year. He retired middle of the week last week. So we didn't have him, obviously. So will we drop down to 3 running backs and just keep a couple of in that protected spot on the practice roster? Or will we keep 4? You have to stay tuned a few more minutes to see what I think there. And then wide receiver. I mean, we all know Jameson Williams out the first 6 weeks of the regular season. He's getting a ton of reps in the preseason because he gets to rest for 6 weeks. So he's going to play a ton. You'll see him a bunch. But then it's, I mean, St. Brown, you probably won't see hardly at all. I just realized I forgot a name in my 53-man prediction. So I'm just typing it in now. All right. Save that. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown isn't going to play hardly at all. Marvin Jones, he's the same thing as Teddy Bridgewater. He's a veteran, doesn't need to play much. And he's familiar with a lot of Detroit. I mean, a lot of it is brand new from when he was here last. But I think with the training camp practices, he'll be fine. I want to see a lot of these guys kind of underneath that are fighting for spots. Denzel Mims, Maurice Alexander, I think he's almost locked because I want to see the competition between him and Khalif Raymond for the kick returner spot because Alexander had that punt return touchdown last week, looked awesome. So I think there's some competition there. But I think Raymond's in as a receiver. He signed that extension. I think he's a lock. I think St. Brown, Williams, Marvin Jones, locks. I feel like Josh Reynolds is pretty safe. So after that, you have Denzel Mims, Maurice Alexander. Dylan Drummond has looked really good. They've been raving about him. Maybe he can sneak his way in. Antoine Green's been really up and down, the 7th-round pick from North Carolina. When he's been on, he's been really on. But there's been a lot of practices where he's been essentially non-existent. So I'd love for him to fight his way on the roster. I know, Sean, you're thinking the same thing. But there's a lot of wide receivers for very few spots. So I'm interested to see how that one comes down. And then the interior defensive line, moving back to the defense. Someone like Levi Onwuzurike, 2nd-round pick from Campbell and Holmes' first class in 2021. I mean, he's a guy that they loved, and then he just got injury after injury after injury, and they're pretty serious ones. Like he had a back injury, a couple like lower body injuries that were fairly serious. He hasn't played much in his career so far. He just cleared all of the hurdles late last week. He got in the game a bit, if I'm not mistaken. He's fully healthy. So I'd love to see him make an impact here, see if he can steal a roster spot here. But, I mean, him on that interior, Aleem McNeil, Isaiah Buggs are pretty much locks. I'd say Broderick Martin being a 3rd-round pick is basically a lock. Josh Pascal, he's kind of a mix between the edge and interior D-line. Yeah, him being a 2nd-round pick last year, he's a lock. John Kaminsky, I think, is pretty safe to say he's in. So, I mean, it looks kind of rough for Onwuzurike. He's going to have to really make an impact here to keep his spot. Now, I've been hearing really good things so far, so hopefully he keeps it up because I'd love to see him play. I've always envisioned him playing right beside Aleem McNeil. So if he could steal that spot from Isaiah Buggs and be what everyone expected him to be, I'd absolutely love that. See, we got another comment here. Scott said, I'll be your chaperone in Detroit. Hey, like I said, whoever wants to come, and it'd be nice to meet all these people that we've just been kind of chatting online with. It'd be nice to meet in person. So yeah, whoever wants to go. Yeah, Sean said, let's go Antoine Green, Tar Heel Nation. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd love to see him wrap it up and do really well. I feel like he'll be probably a practice squad guy looking at it now, but a guy that next year, the year after, could really fight for that roster spot and maybe steal it from one of these guys. I mean, tight end's pretty locked in. You know what? Since I'm talking about all these positions, let's just do it. Let's go into the initial 53-man roster predictions. Before I say that, Scott said, go Stetson Bennett. Yeah, you should put in the comment who your first dream quarterback was for this draft. Actually, you can leave it. I'll say it right here. So my 3 quarterbacks. So I'll kind of put a disclaimer out before. I actually have 55 players because Jameson Williams being suspended, I kept him on the list, but he's not actually counting towards the 53-man roster. So keeping him in the list, but he's not counting. You'll just see an extra name. And then Hendon Hooker. Remember the rule they put in this year. You can have a third quarterback, an emergency quarterback. That doesn't count for one of your 53-man roster spots. So I have him listed. I have those guys in there. So there's actually 55 names, but Hendon Hooker and Jameson Williams do not count towards my initial 53-man roster. So Goff and Bridgewater will be the first two quarterbacks. And I really like that combo. I mean, Teddy's a guy I wanted last year to back Goff up. So I'm very happy with that group. Very confident in that group. I feel like Hendon Hooker, once he's back healthy and fully rolling, he might steal that number 2 spot from Bridgewater, and Bridgewater becomes the emergency quarterback. Also, I mean, we saw Bridgewater last year get hurt. It happens fairly often. So having a guy like Hendon Hooker, who you can probably feel pretty comfortable with, I like that group a lot. Running back, I went with 4. So I had Montgomery, Gibbs, Craig Reynolds, and Benny Snell. I think Snell, on a day's notice, essentially, he was signed Thursday, played Friday. Same thing Craig Reynolds did when he first came to us. He signed the night before, came in, played the game, and they both looked really good. So I think it's the same kind of situation. Benny Snell's a good depth running back. He's not a guy that's going to start for you, but he can get you out of a pinch if a running back goes down. He can come in, perform, and get you out of that situation. So I like him a lot, especially as like a third or fourth running back. But I mean, this is Montgomery and Gibbs and everyone else. I'm excited to see how they kind of use the two. Montgomery's a guy that averaged 4 yards per carry behind what was a bad offensive line for the Bears last year. Now he's moving to one of the top 5 offensive lines. I can't wait to see what he does. And, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, like I said, with that speed, if he gets some of these holes that the starters were opening last year, he might house it a few times from deep this year. So, very excited to watch those two go at it. I do have a fullback, Jason Cabinda. Dan Campbell likes using the fullback in the short yardage situations. And, I mean, Cabinda's a pretty good run blocker. So, I think he'll make the roster. I think he'll stay. Wide receiver. So, the one I forgot was actually Marvin Jones. When I started going through the list and, like, this guy won't play, this guy won't play, I was like, oh, forgot Marvin Jones. So, threw him in. But Amon-Ra, Jameson once he's back, but it doesn't count towards the list, like I said earlier. So, Marvin Jones, Khalif Raymond, Josh Reynolds, Denzel Mims, and Maurice Alexander. I really like what Dylan Drummond's doing. He might steal one of those last 2 spots from Mims or Alexander, but I've also been hearing really good things about Mims in practice. So, I mean, if he has one big game, he probably locks himself in. But this is a lot of guys where not big names, but they could really change that with a big season. Getting in there, I know Goff feels really comfortable with a lot of these guys, so I'm expecting big things from this receiver room as well. The tight end group, Sam Laporta, I feel like he's pretty much locked into the starting role. He got in for a drive or two, had one target, should have made the catch. I will say that. That's an NFL tight end level catch. Hit you kind of basically in the hands. Now the DB kind of pulled on your arm a little bit, but I feel like that's one he's got to make. Still confident in him. I think he'll be just fine. And then Brock Wright and James Mitchell behind him. James Mitchell, man, he doesn't drop the ball. He caught every target thrown at him last year. He had 3 targets on Friday, caught all 3. He's got glue on his hands or something, man, because he's phenomenal at catching the ball. Laporta and Brock Wright are better blockers. I mean, Brock Wright had that long touchdown against the Jets last year that kind of won us the game. So, I mean, he's kind of more of a do-it-all. Sam Laporta the same way. James Mitchell is more of your strictly receiving tight end that's learning how to block. So, I really like this tight end room. It's really underrated as well. Excited to see how Sam Laporta does because, I mean, we saw Hawkinson really kind of essentially break out when he went to Minnesota because they targeted the tight end more. And that was the whole reason I said it was fine to get rid of Hawkinson, because the money he was worth, we weren't going to use him enough to pay him that kind of money. So Laporta can come in on that rookie contract again, and let's go. Let's see how he does. I'm very excited to see that. Now talking about my position, the O-line. These guys in the trenches. So the first five are who I think are going to be the starters. Taylor Decker at left tackle, Jonah Jackson left guard, Frank Ragnow center, Graham Glasgow is the right guard, and Penei Sewell the right tackle. I mean, the right guard's the only one up for grabs here. Everything else is set in stone. I mean, you got Penei Sewell, who's top 10 right tackle, pushing top 5. Some people, depending who you ask, he already is. I have him just outside personally, but very good right tackle. Frank Ragnow's a top 3 to 5 center in the NFL. Jonah Jackson's been a Pro Bowl guard. And Taylor Decker's, he's a solid left tackle. He's good. Nobody on this roster is replacing him, unless you wanted to put Penei at left tackle. Then Decker could go right. But this is a very good offensive line, one of the elite ones in the NFL. And then looking at the backups here, there's a lot of versatility. So Ifedi, Nelson, and Vaitai, actually all of them could play guard and tackle. Glasgow could be your center, and then one of those, probably Vaitai, would move to that right guard if needed. They also brought a couple other guys in. Millette, I can't remember his first name, and a couple undrafted free agents. So we'll see if any of them can crack this roster. Maybe we take 10. But last year, I went and looked. Last year, we had 9 O-linemen on the game day roster. So I went with 9 again. And these were the 9 I came up with. Colby Sorsdal, the 5th round rookie. I have him making the roster. I thought he looked good on Friday. Solid in pass pro, could be a little bit better. Really good in the run game. I liked what I saw from him a lot. So I have him making the roster. And if he does, congrats, because that's a small school making the roster with a very good offensive line. That's very impressive. So hope he keeps it up and can find himself on the game day roster. Moving over to the defensive line. This is the group that I probably had the toughest time picking, was the edge rushers. And unfortunately, I kept Julian Okwara off the list. I feel like he'll be one of those protected practice roster players if they're still doing that. But I went with 4. I went with Aiden Hutchinson, Romeo Okwara, Charles Harris, and James Houston. Mostly because Josh Paschal can be that versatility guy. Like I said, he can be that outside guy, that inside guy. Derek Barnes can rush off the edge as well. So you could move him down. There's a lot you could do with these edge rushers. I think these 4, it gives you a lot of versatility. Hutchinson can do it all. He's speed rush, power rush, a little bit of everything. Romeo Okwara is more of a power rush. Charles Harris is more of an intermediate guy. And then James Houston is that pure speed rush, that bad at hell getting off the edge and going after the quarterback. So there's a lot of versatility there. A lot of different matchups you can work with. I think Hutchinson and Harris will probably be the day one starters in Kansas City. But expect Okwara and Houston to get a lot of playing time as well. I think that's a very good, underrated group. The interior defensive linemen, I went with 6 guys. This is more essentially the 3-4 kind of defense. So this is the nose tackle and then the 2 defensive ends. I still call them D tackles as well. But Aleem McNeil's locked into that nose. He's a good starting D tackle. Nothing more, nothing less. He's solid. Isaiah Buggs had a pretty good year last year. I still thought they could have upgraded that D tackle spot, but he's back. He played well on Friday. I mean, it was against John Michael Schmidt's rookie, first time at NFL level speed. So I kind of expected him to manhandle him a bit, but he did very well. John Kaminsky looks solid. He's another guy that could rush off the edge if you really needed him to. Another big power rusher. Paschal, same thing. Broderick Martin, the 3rd round pick. I feel like he's that backup nose. He's built like that nose tackle, and he's good. He can push the pocket. He can do a little bit of everything. He's just raw. He needs some time, but I think he's going to be enough to make the roster, and then they can work on him as a backup from there. And I have Onwuzurike sneaking on the list. To me, it's kind of either Onwuzurike makes it or he's off and Julian Okwara makes it. So we'll see how that goes. Last year they kept more interior guys than they did edge rushers, so I mean, there was also, you can also factor in that Charles Harris was on IR for most of the year. Aquara was on and off IR, Romeo, that is. And James Houston was on the practice roster for a bit, but I do still think they'll keep more of these interior guys because you could bump Kaminsky and Pascal, like I was saying before. This linebacker group is, I was going to say the most improved, but it's definitely the corners. I won't lie about that. So this linebacker group is much improved, though. Where you have Hard Knocks darling Malcolm Rodriguez isn't going to start this year. And they've kind of made that clear that essentially it's Campbell and Anzalone. Now Rodrigo and Barnes are still really pushing, but it looks like they're going to be the special team studs that can come in at a moment's notice, and it's going to be Campbell and Anzalone for the most part. A lot of the time last year we were running a 4-2-5 defense. I think it's going to stay very much the same, especially with the amount of DBs we got this year. I think they'll try and keep as many of those guys on the field as possible. So I think 4 D linemen, 2 linebackers, and 5 DBs is the way we're going to go. So expect a lot of Campbell and Anzalone this year. This cornerback group, I love what I'm seeing. I got Mosley Sutton starting on the outside, and then Brian Branch locking in that nickel, that slot corner. And then Jerry Jacobs, I love that he's that first backup. I've loved Jacobs from the moment he stepped on the field in 2021 there as that undrafted free agent. He's just brought it, man. Every time he's on the field, he brings it, plays very well. I love what I see from him and glad we can keep him here. And Will Harris, he's versatile, man. He's a guy that played a lot of outside for us the last year or so. Started as a safety. They brought him into the nickel a bit last year as well, so he can play all the spots. So I kept him on the roster because he's there in a pinch if you need him, wherever you need him. So I really like this corner group, especially looking at it from last year, where you had, Okuda, Oruwariye, a lot of guys that underperformed. Okuda was very up and down. He locked down Justin Jefferson, but then there were weeks where, Bailey Zappi torched him time after time after time a couple weeks later. So, very, very up and down. Hope he does well in Atlanta. I always like the guys to do well, even after they leave. So, hopefully they can perform, but I love this group we got in here. And then the safety group, man. CJ Gardner-Johnson, who could be in that corner group, but I've got him starting here with Kirby Joseph. Give Tracy Walker more time to come off that Achilles tear from last year. Let him get 100%, and then you can rotate those 3. That is a dangerous safety group. I love that. And then Ifeatu Melifonwu, him and Savion Smith are having a battle here too. I should have listed them as well, looking at them for the Jaguars, but they both played very well against the Giants. I liked what I saw from both of them, so we'll see how they do. For me, it's more Savion Smith was undrafted, and Melifonwu was a 3rd-round pick, so I'm kind of leaning on the draft pedigree there, because I'm essentially calling it a tie at this point. But it's a very good group. Scott said, great job holding your own, Alex. Just don't let the popo catch you holding it. Thank you, Scott. And then just finishing up here with the special teams. So kicker, I think Riley Patterson's going to take it. Romeo Parker, he's been okay. Riley Patterson, I thought won the competition last year with Michael Badgley. They kept Badgley instead. Patterson went to Jacksonville, did pretty good. They traded back for Patterson this year, 7th-round pick, let Badgley go. That, to me, was Patterson's got the job. Obviously, you bring in another guy for competition. But Romeo Parker just hasn't looked as good as Patterson, in my opinion. So I think Patterson's going to be the guy. Jack Fox, one of the better punters in the NFL. And Scott Daly, he's locked in as the long snapper already. We had, I think it's Jack McQuaid, the old Cowboys long snapper, had signed with us, and they had said, you've got to outright beat Daly. If you tie, we're gonna keep our guy. And then something happened, and they released McQuaid last week. So Daly's the guy. He's locked in. And yeah, that's the 3 special teams guys. And then the kick returner and punt returner competition, like I said before, it's pretty much between Khalif Raymond and Maurice Alexander. Raymond was the guy last year. He's been an all-pro returner before. So it's going to be hard to take him out, but I think Alexander could be on the game day roster as well, just to kind of be that second guy in case we need it, especially when Jameson Williams is out. I think he could be on there until Williams is out, and then can just be there on that practice roster in case Raymond gets hurt. Then you can bring Alexander up, and he can go. But yeah, that's all I really got. So what I'm going to do is next week I'm also going to do the 53-man roster predictions. I'll see if anything changes based off of Saturday's game, and we'll go through it again. If there's any changes, we'll talk about them. And then, yeah, it'll be a very similar show to this next week. And then once we get into the regular season, we'll have more stuff to talk about. But that's going to be all for this week. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you next week, either Tuesday night or Wednesday night. I'll try and post something probably Sunday, Monday on what I decide there. But yeah, we'll see you next week.